We're heading home for the playoffs, baby. First and Now is your official BC Lions podcast. It's a Victory Monday, as they say here in the studio, in the office. Nick Kowalski, Matt Baker. Nick, feels great, baby, was what we said last week after clinching. And you're a perfect 2 for 2. Your second season with the team, and it's another home playoff game. Lions clinching home spot, first place up for grabs at the win over Saskatchewan, and yeah, my friend, feels pretty good right now.
Yeah, like you said, for me, it's sort of the norm, the expectation now, right? But it's not me. I would say it's more of Nathan Rourke, Vernon Adams Jr., Rick Campbell, his whole coaching staff putting it all together on the field, right?
Keon Hatcher, yeah.
Yeah, the list can go on. Matthew Betts, we can beer for days.
Lucius Purifoy had a good year last year. Yeah,
all-star performance. Yeah, but yeah, it feels good. I mean, that crowd last year, we talk about the home openers at BC Place these past 2 years and how good of an environment they've been and how much fun they've been to be a part of. But that playoff game, I think, stands out to me last year in terms of, or even not even last year, but these past 2 years in terms of the noise level, the energy, and just the amount of fun you had in that game. So I'm looking forward to having another one at BC Place, and we just don't know when.
Yeah, so could be the division semifinal on November 4th, the division final November 11th. Saturday playoff games, I love that. I know you do too. I know several people that we talk to are of the same mindset. It's funny though, you mentioned last year's Western semi, 30-16 win over Calgary, but it wasn't even that close.
No.
Like Calgary got their touchdown at the end. It was, I think it was 27-9, and when they finally got in the end zone, and we got a field goal at the end to put a little icing on the cake. That was a very special day, a very big day, and that Calgary kind of came out aggressive that day. Remember, they were going for it on a third down in the first quarter. The Lions stuffed them. The Antonio Pipkin trick play to Hatcher for one that really broke it open in the third quarter. Just a day of execution by the Lions. Nathan Rourke, not 100%, but battling through, coming back, getting spatted up at halftime. That's one of those, I've kept that on my PVR the whole time. If I'm ever, if I ever want to go back, if I need a little bit of a pick-me-up at home, I'll just toss on. It wasn't the Grey Cup, we get that, but you're right. That was a very special day, and yeah, a win over Winnipeg this Friday, and you're in the driver's seat for first place. We'll get into all that and all the scenarios, but yeah, just the idea of getting back home for the playoffs, whether it's the semifinal or the final, is outstanding. You certainly would have taken that at the start of the year, but it's all thanks to a game, again, speaking of the score, not as close as the score indicated. Saskatchewan not giving up. Jake Dolagala and company will give him credit for that. But for me, it's all about Vernon Adams, Nick. Season high, 458 yards. Keon Hatcher came up huge, as did Alexander Hollins. But great to have VA perform at such a solid level in that win.
Yeah, definitely a statement game by Vernon Adams Jr. Another 450 plus against Saskatchewan. I know on the broadcast they were saying in his last 7 quarters, Vernon Adams had like 821 yards against the Rough Riders, which is just ridiculous. But it's a performance that I know we're going to get into the MOP talk too in this episode later, but that's the type of performance I think everyone needed to see from Vernon Adams Jr. to, one, not only put him in that conversation or keep him in that conversation, but put him like right at the top of that conversation now. No turnovers is a big thing with that win too, right? Vernon Adams never gave the ball up, and made his throws, and having Dominique Rhymes back too, full weapons at receiver, it really showed on the field. And Rhymes had a quiet, I think it was 92 yards in the win, right? Like he was still productive, but like you said, it was the Keon Hatcher, Alex Hollins show as it's been all year.
Yeah, and he initially was called an interception. He threw that one, was it Derek Moncrief?
Yeah, and Hatch battling.
So Keon Hatcher doing it all. Sometimes as a receiver, you have to quote-unquote become a defender, and was watching on the replay while it was being reviewed, was standing next to Farhan Lalji, and we both kind of agreed, that looks like simultaneous possession. So that goes to the offense in that situation, and sure enough, the ball ended up coming loose. It was one of those where he didn't complete the process, talking about the defender in this case. So thankfully, instant replay, we think, got it right. Obviously, we're wearing orange colors here on this podcast, orange and black, but And even in real time, it looked like, I don't even know if he completed the process of making that play. And as we saw on the replay, Keon Hatcher did his part to make sure the Lions maintained possession in that situation. Yeah, remember last week it was all about Rhymes, and naturally so. He's one of the team's top playmakers. Injuries have played a role this year in his quest for another 1,000-yard year after his 1,400 a year ago, but wasn't much of a talking point, and that's a good thing. Hatcher and Hollins. Keon Hatcher with 172, career high for him, and to me, that's important because he had a couple quote-unquote quieter weeks. I think he only had one catch against Ottawa 2 weeks ago. Had a couple big plays in Edmonton right before half that set up a field goal, a catch and run. It's good every week to see another one of these guys leading the charge.
Does it make it even more impressive than the fact that Keon Hatcher is averaging 10 more yards per game than any other CFL receiver in the league? You mentioned that he had some quiet games, but...
Hey, MOP talk, right? We're talking about MOP candidates. I think the two quarterbacks in this game Friday will be the leading candidates, but yeah.
But yeah, and back to those calls too. I thought, that was the right call where neither person ultimately had possession in that case. And then there was another one that I thought the refs did a really good job on at the end of the game in the fourth quarter on that defensive pass interference, offensive pass interference review.
That's rare to see,
but it was the right call, and I thought the refs overall did a good job. Interesting tidbit: the Riders had 0 penalties on in this game, so that was kind of interesting to see. But the refs did a solid job. I thought it was, like you said too, it was a 7-point victory, but it did feel like it was way larger, right? Like I actually made a note to take a screenshot after the third quarter where the Riders had 182 net yards and the Lions had 468, and it was a 22-point game. So by that point, the Riders scored a couple times late, made the numbers look pretty and all that. But
onside kick recovery in there, kind of.
But call a spade a spade. The game was pretty much over. Yeah, a lot of things had to happen for it to even get to one possession game. So, and the team ultimately got the job done.
Yeah, we told you last week, we predicted on this very podcast that the bat phone would be ringing, and sure enough,
it always is.
Hollins gets behind coverage, 71 yards, no defenders within 15 yards of him, it seemed, and that's big play VA. That's the receivers. This offense can change field position and change the course of the game at the drop of a hat. So kudos. I mean, the defense, the offense will get a lot of the headlines, but the defense coming up big. 3 quarterback sacks. Matthew Betts now 2 back of the Canadian record. He's got 15 on the year. Of course, he had a monster game in Winnipeg back in week 3 with 3 sacks on Zach Collaros. So that's good to see. And they're going to have a test this week with Brady Oliveira. But we're going to talk Lions and Blue Bombers here. Game of the year. Talking to a couple players after practice today on Monday, we record this. They're doing their best to downplay it. You know, we talked to Marcus Sales, and he's like, yeah, it's a big game, but at the same time, we can't lose focus. We can't make it seem bigger than it is, even though the stakes are really high. But it's the Lions and Bombers. It has been the 2 best teams in this division all year long, and kind of a weird start to the season series, of course. So we turned a lot of heads going in there in week 3, 30-6, just a complete defensive domination. Ali B, Batman with a big touchdown before half to kind of change the course of that game after it looked like the Blue Bombers were going to be chipping away. And we all know what happened the last time we went in there, August the 3rd, a 50-14 defeat. You could smell the blood in the water from the get-go that night. The Blue Bombers, of course, they were angry. They were coming off a bye. It was our 3rd game in 12 nights. Might sound like excuses, but that was the backdrop. Not taking anything away from Winnipeg, because we know full well they're still very capable of making you pay if you're not on your game. But I have a hunch this one might be a little bit closer, and I'm looking forward to it. The winner would essentially be in the driver's seat. The winner would just have a magic number of 1 to host the West Final. So stakes don't get much bigger than that in the regular season, young Nick.
No, and the big difference with this game, too, is that Vernon Adams Jr. is obviously going to be playing
That's
quarterback
right,
for the
yeah.
BC Lions. I think people forget that Vernon did not dress in that 50-14 loss. I've actually seen comments online of people using that against him, that he's always got blown out against the Bombers. No,
what are you talking about? He lost 50-14. He can't be the MOP.
Yeah, no. Vernon Adams is not playing in that game. He was playing in the game where they won 30-6.
And to take it to another level, remember, Dane Evans went out before halftime.
Yeah.
So this is not taking away from anything, because we do love the quarterback depth that we have, but just goes to show you how shorthanded they were at the most important position.
Yeah, not trying to make any excuses. I'm purposely trying to avoid any excuses.
Right.
50-14 loss, because they were obviously the better team that night. But
those guys aren't playing defense, the quarterbacks we're talking
exactly,
about.
Yeah. My point here is that Vernon Adams Jr. and Zach Collaros, they have been the two best quarterbacks in the CFL this year, at least in the West, right? And now they are going head-to-head in the most meaningful game in the CFL season, and that's something that I think, if that doesn't get you excited to go watch some CFL football in downtown Vancouver, then I don't know what will. But going back to the 30-6 game, I mean, the thing that stood out to me, too, in terms of not holding Winnipeg to 6 points was we sacked them 7 times. Matthew Betts getting 3. Yep. That was the key, right? And the numbers show when there's a sack on a drive, especially in the CFL where you only get 2 downs, your chances of scoring drastically change, right? So ultimately, it showed on the scoreboard where Winnipeg could not do anything in terms of getting points on the scoreboard. So where the game will be won and lost is a lot to say in the trenches, right? With Matthew Betts for Stanley Bryan and Jamarcus Hardrick, Sione Tuihema has emerged as quite a good run stopper, right? And we saw it 2 weeks ago in Edmonton with RP's kind of luxurious blitz packages rolling in, right? Like, I'm sure he has more of those up his sleeve in this big game.
And remember that big moment in that first game for me was the huge hit by Josh Banks on special teams. That was the type of moment for me. I'm like, okay, something might be cooking with this Lions team tonight, because Winnipeg's a team, they thrive on making you pay, hitting you in the mouth, more physical. The Lions made a point of being the much more physical football team that night, and it showed. And you're going to have to see that again here on Friday.
Even in that entire game, there was a play, it was the final play of the first quarter where Quincy Mauger crushed Dalton Schoen.
That's right.
I was half a second late, and they rightfully gave him a flag. But Schoen had a quiet night. He had 2 catches for 34 yards. And you don't think if that's a tone setter hit, then you're wrong when you look at that. And you look at even a Marcus Sales hit. I look back on that in the third quarter on Brady Oliveira, where Sales jumps a flat route and just blows up Brady Oliveira. So to your point, BC was by far the more physical team that game. And on the line of scrimmage too, right? When it came to the winning your pass rushes too. So that's definitely a key. It often is in football, and when two Goliaths like these two teams meet head to head, it's going to be a key.
The more physical team is going to be the one that likely wins this one, and likely ends up going farther in the dance. Of course, both these teams 11-4 and mirror each other in a lot of ways. I mean, you look at this Lions team dropping a couple of games to Saskatchewan and Hamilton, teams you would say on any given day they should beat, but any given day anything can happen. Remember, Winnipeg lost in Ottawa as well, right? Ottawa almost came, we don't know how close Ottawa came to pulling it off here. Winnipeg also has a loss to Hamilton and a loss to Saskatchewan. So these teams have identical records, and they mirror each other in a lot of ways. But let's get into it. Typically, the most outstanding player finalist is a guy who's winning games in October, leading his team to a playoff bye in the first round. Not saying the winner on Friday here definitely has the upper hand, but it's kind of trending in that direction. So we know Brady Oliveira is at over 1,300 yards rushing. We know both the Lions and Bombers have a couple of elite receivers. We've talked about the Keon Hatchers, the Alex Hollands, Dalton Schoen, Rasheed Bailey, Kenny Lawler in Winnipeg. But it is a quarterback-driven league. It is a quarterback-driven voting process. I think you're going to see the two quarterbacks as the two prime candidates for West Division MOP nominee. I think you can circle Chad Kelly in the East, just based on how that's gone. But we're only talking about the West. How do you see this, Nick? Vernon Adams Jr., he is the CFL's passing yards leader, 4,005. Passing touchdowns, Zach Collaros has the upper hand, 30 to Adams' 28. But keep in mind, we talked about Vernon being hurt. I think Zach missed almost a full game in Edmonton when he got hit low there. Came back the following week, right?
Yeah, that was in the second quarter.
So Vernon essentially missed, 2 full games?
Well, you can count 3 if you want to count the Sask one,
yeah,
too, right?
3 full games. Sorry, got
quarter.
hurt early in Saskatchewan, and then Edmonton and Winnipeg were the 2 road games with the knee injury, the sprained knee. So that takes into account, too, that he's leading in passing and missed a bit of time. So, yeah, it's up for grabs with both these 2 quarterbacks. I think it's a fascinating race. You can make the case for Adams. I know some of the voters might look at the interception total. Sad but true. That's something people always look at. But Zach's turned the ball over a bit, too. It's a fascinating race. Where do you see it leading here?
Well, Zach has, just chime in on that, Zach has 2 fewer interceptions, but he has 3 pick sixes this year, so those are pretty costly.
And he has fumbles, but he's got
say.
Fumbles in there, too, right?
One more fumble than Vernon Adams Jr. Yep. So I think it's fair to say the winner of this game has a very strong edge in being nominated out of the West for this award. And at this point now, too, it's an interesting case with Chad Kelly in terms of that he sat out a game where he was healthy, right, because of them clinching first place already. But that takes a huge hit to his numbers, right? Like Vernon they've both played 13 games now. And mind you, the game where Vernon had 8 yards in the first quarter against Sask had left, that counts as a game played for him, right?
Yeah.
So he kind of has 12 games played in reality. But Vernon has over 600 more passing yards than Chad Kelly. And I know Chad has a bunch of rushing touchdowns, but Vernon has 7 more passing touchdowns than Chad. So I think based on a production, if you just look at the numbers, Vernon right now has the best numbers, period. I mean, Vernon has a better completion percentage than both Chad Kelly and Zach Collaros too, right? And it's not like, I mean, if you watch Vernon, he's not dinking and diving down the field, right? It's a lot of deep shots, a lot of contested balls. Big play VA is his nickname after all, right? Mm-hmm. But I think it's fair to say, the winner of this game has such a strong chance of getting first place in the West Division. And the fact that this game, it all comes down to this game. The pressure in this situation is huge, right? And if either of these quarterbacks has a big night and ultimately takes a win, I think it's more than fair to say that the winner of this game should be at least the nomination for the most outstanding player award, or at least have be the front runner for it at this point.
Could not agree more. It's a product of these 2 teams fighting it out for first place really all season long. And lastly, with these 2 quarterbacks, comparable stories. I mean, Zach Collaros bounced around a bit, battled injuries, knocked on the door with Hamilton, and getting to a Grey Cup, losing to Calgary here at BC Place in 2014, and then ended up in Saskatchewan, ended up back in Toronto before going to Winnipeg at the trade deadline in 2019, and clearly being traded to that organization, it speaks for itself, the wonders it has done for his career. He was always a quarterback who was kind of viewed as sort of being that echelon where he can get into being an elite guy, and it so happened when he got to Winnipeg, that's what it took. Vernon Adams, same thing, remember? Bounced around at the start, found a home in Montreal, and then they sort of cast him off last year, of course, in September. And the Lions are better off for it. The circumstances weren't ideal with Nathan Rourke going down, but the Lions have found their franchise quarterback, and that's kind of a cool sort of angle to it. The fact that both of these guys have bounced around and have had to persevere through some hard luck in their careers.
Oh, most definitely, and I think perseverance is a major trait of these 2 individuals, just for those reasons you laid out, and it is great to see. Especially there's been talk, the last couple of leagues where there hasn't really been that elite quarterback play across the board. And we're talking Adams, Collaros, and Kelly. That I'd say all 3 have been playing on an elite level for the majority of the season, right? And it's exciting to see that, 3 of these teams, or all 3 of their teams now, have clinched home playoff games. It's much deserved, right? And I don't think it's any surprise that when you look at 3 elite quarterbacks, all 3 teams were in the start of October and they've already clinched home playoff games. It's not a coincidence.
Another great angle, and feel free to hit us up at BakesTakes84 on Twitter, at Nick_Kowalski. He is at BC Lions. any cases you want to make when talking about this most outstanding player race.
I'll hit you back with numbers.
Yeah, we got receipts, we got numbers,
visuals.
We got it all.
I kind of want to make a compilation of some of Vernon's throws too, because we have the closest angle possible, right, without being on the actual field. And some of the throws he's making are like the windows he's hitting, where he's just floating balls in over top linebackers in between defensive backs. It's pretty ridiculous. There's one to Dominique Rhymes in the third quarter on last Friday, which is just an insane throw to look at field level. You think it's going right into Micah Teitz's hands, but it goes right over him, right in front of the DB, right into Dom Rhymes' hands, first down. It's
dropping the bucket.
He's been doing that all season too.
Yep. Another important element of this one, and forgive us for sounding like a broken record, but it's important. That's why we keep saying it. The play up front. Winnipeg, the first couple of years anyway, this run that they've been on, 3 straight Grey Cup appearances, 2 wins, was the play of their defense. Willie Jefferson, Jackson Jeffcoat. In the past, they've had guys who've moved on, guys like Stove Richardson and Casey Sales making noise in the interior. And Michael Couture knows about the importance of that. First-year Lions center, has a couple of Grey Cup rings with the Blue Bombers. Proud Burnaby boy. Mr. Couture, we spoke with him on the importance of this matchup, and we had a little fun with Andrew Pearson crashing the party as well. Let's hear from Michael Couture here on First and No. Michael Couture now, first-year BC Lion, former Winnipeg Blue Bomber. We'll talk about your old team here in short order, but just coming off the win over Saskatchewan and another item checked off the list, wrapping up a home playoff game. What's the vibe after that one, Mike?
Yeah, the guys are excited. Whenever you're able to secure something like a home playoff game at this point in the season, it's always exciting. You celebrate that pretty quickly, though. Still got 3 games left, and you take those week by week and just kind of go from there.
I know there's always things in your game you want to clean up. There's never a perfect outing, but you allow VA to get a season high. You have a couple of receivers eclipse 1,000 yards for the season. Hatch had a heck of a game. How much pride has the unit taken in the job you guys did?
Yeah, a lot. That's our job, is to keep VA up. And to allow our playmakers to make the plays that they do. And obviously last game that went really well for us, so we're just going to try and keep continuing to do that.
Yep, and as mentioned, Winnipeg here Friday, winner in the driver's seat for the Western Crown, home field for the West Final. We don't want to overstate it, but probably not going to find a much bigger regular season scenario than this, right?
Yeah, definitely not. We're all really looking forward to this one. Obviously, we're one game up on each other, like in the series. So this is for the season series for us. So it's a big one.
You were a member of 2 Grey Cup winning teams, so you saw firsthand how that team was built into a contender. How similar do you see this current Lions team than the one that was building there in Winnipeg a couple years ago, if that makes sense?
Yeah, very similar. I think it starts in the locker room. The guys are really tight. A lot of guys like to hang out together, and the tighter you are as a group, the more that's going to translate onto the field, and I'm definitely seeing that, throughout the course of this season.
Just talk about their defensive front. We all know what the likes of Jefferson, Jeffcoat have been. Just that challenge, Michael.
Yeah, they're a great group. They're veteran. They're really well coached. They know what they're doing. They played in a lot of football games, so it's going to be a big challenge for sure, but we're looking forward to it.
Now that you're 8 games deep at BC Place and with counting the preseason, have you had a chance to reflect on the moments at BC Place this year? And are there any that stand out in terms of playing in front of your home city crowd?
I try not to reflect too much, probably until after the season. But yeah, there's definitely some moments. Coming back against Ottawa, obviously was a cool one to have friends and family be able to watch me play so frequently now. Is another cool one for me. So yeah.
The big difference with this game too on Friday is that it's at BC Place, obviously, but you're used to playing in these high stakes games back in your time at Winnipeg. Can you just talk about how the actual environment changes when the stakes get higher in football?
Yeah, it's just there's more emphasis on getting your job done. I feel like when the stakes are high and it's more important games, sometimes guys can try and maybe do a little bit too much, but as long as everybody sticks to what their assignment is on every play, we're going to be just fine. And I'm excited to be able to do that in our home stadium. We've had 2 games in Winnipeg dealing with, their crowd noise, in their home stadium, but now they got to come to us. So I'm looking forward to that.
Anything you want to add to this, Andrew Pearson?
Yeah, Andrew Pearson with The Independent. How important is, being close with your offensive line and not hating them on a daily basis? Can you just touch on the camaraderie that you might have with the O-line?
Yeah, what are we missing out? Who hates who here?
I don't know what he's talking about. No comment.
Okay, we got stumped by Andrew Pearson. It's officially complete. Michael, thank you for joining the podcast, and we look forward to this one. Gravy Bowl. Thanksgiving food quickly in closing. What's your favorite Thanksgiving item?
Ooh, stuffing. I'm going to go with stuffing. Not a huge turkey guy. Stuffing.
Eating contest with Pearson and Couture. Who wins?
He's got it. No, hands down.
You guys had your O-line dinner ready with the Moj, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Who's the biggest eater there?
Who ate the most at Simba's?
Oh, I don't know.
It might have.
Neville. He was for those who can't hear.
I was in physical pain after that. I was so full.
But, Neville, my personal experience is
Can put it back the best?
Oh, yeah, he can throw down with anyone.
All right. So I guess Neville then.
All right, we covered a lot of topics. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours, Mike, and let's get the dub.
Guys, awesome.
Love it. And, when you saw Andrew Pearson lurking around there, that it was going to get funny. But that's an element of this game, Nick. The trenches up front. And the offensive line, like we talked about there with Michael, did a fine job against Saskatchewan. Going to have to be even better this week, you think?
Mm-hmm. And another encouraging sign that we're recording this on Monday, and it was just a walkthrough today, but Suk Chung was out there in uniform, obviously missing last game.
With the starters,
And that's where the depth of having Andrew Pearson, a guy like Andrew Pearson around, really proved pivotal, right? Like he was able to step into Suk's right guard position after playing in the left guard position for majority of the year, where David Neville is currently occupying. So, and just based off with Neville and Pearson, those are two guys that have taken a couple years to get to this point to where they are now, right? And I don't think they're going to be motivated if they're out in there playing guards in this massive game, probably the game of their CFL lives so far, right? In terms of starting, and even Suk, right? Suk's a former Blue Bomber as well, right? So the motivation's there. For Michael Couture, the motivation's there. So I'm expecting them to perform like that, and it's just exciting to see it on Friday night.
Love it. Michael Couture, heck of a guy. Glad we got him here.
Yeah.
Always love the story of good local players coming home to play with the BC Lions. So we've talked quarterbacks. We've talked up front. Anything else that intrigues you with this matchup?
I'm sure the secondary is going to want to put forth a much better performance, right? They take a lot of pride in their work and being the best defense and locking things down, right? And from that 50-14 game, it was kind of an air raid. It was Kenny Lawler's first game against us this
First
season
play
too.
From scrimmage, right?
Yeah, it was Dalton Schoen and Kenny Lawler.
Yeah.
It was kind of everybody, right? So I know they were definitely not happy with their performance in that one, and they take pride on being the best defense in the league. They say it themselves, and you gotta walk the walk this week, right? Winnipeg's been playing like a top defense as well, so
Have to back it up.
And then it's on the flip side too. These receiving cores, I think people are saying Winnipeg's the best, but we'll say no, we're the best, and it's another chance for the Lions receiver group to prove they're the best, and it goes to the same for Winnipeg, right? They think they're the best there, and they'll be looking to prove it too.
Something to keep an eye on this week. Keep tracking. Demario Houston left Winnipeg's win over Toronto with an injury. The Bombers did not practice on Monday, unlike the Lions here. So that's maybe a storyline injury-wise for those guys, because that guy is capable of changing a game. Look no further than their win in Calgary earlier this year, 1-point win, where his pick six was the only touchdown for either team all night long back in August. The Gravy Bowl, we promoted it a bit with Couture there. Thanksgiving celebration, our backyard party, presented by PlayNow.com, gets going 4 o'clock. A Thanksgiving-themed menu. I'm going up there, Nick. I'm going to have the turkey poutine. That's going to be my pregame meal. I'm going to go up there. I'm already salivating over the thought of getting some turkey on a Friday night. We're going to celebrate it in style. There's going to be some sort of competition out there, perhaps a pie eating contest. We don't know, but $5 Molson Coors beverages, as always, starting at 4 o'clock. And it's going to be hopefully it's going to be a festive night. I like the Thanksgiving theme here. I know you do too.
Yeah, it's always exciting. It's leaves are changing their colors. The weather's getting a little crisper out there. It's still pretty
Or
warm
wet
out here.
today in Monday's case.
Yeah, still the air is a little crisper, right? And another thing about this game too is the University of Washington
Huskies band,
marching
yep.
band's going to be in attendance. That's going to be a cool atmosphere. It's going to feel a little more college-like, I bet. And it's going to be packed anyway, so it's going to be already rocking to begin with. But yeah, it's a lot to look forward to on Friday. Off the field too.
Yes, adult tickets starting at $25. Youth 17 and under get in for 10. And if you're only going to one regular season game, first off, you should be going to more. But this is the one you want to go to. 11-4 Lions, 11-4 Bombers, 7 o'clock. Save on Foods Field at BC Place. The Gravy Bowl, a presentation of our good friends at Save on Foods as well. Like last week, we are the second half of a Friday doubleheader. Elks at the Argos. Edmonton coming off the bye since our victory there at Commonwealth a couple of weeks ago. We've talked about the Elks quite a bit, playing better. Trey Ford giving them a shot of adrenaline these past 5-6 games. The Elks pretty much need to win out and get some help. Their playoff hopes officially hanging by a thread, but they just been focused on playing better football. And I have a hunch Chad Kelly will be back taking reps here for Toronto. At 12-2 have clinched first in the East. Looking forward to seeing how Edmonton measures themselves up against Toronto here.
Yeah, and they're off a bye too, right? Not playing after hosting us the week prior too, right? And this is a very important game, like you said, for the Elks. I think it's their first trip to Toronto in a couple of years too, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think they went there last.
I think it's their first time there since that 3-game, 3 and 8 days, whatever it was, at the end of 2021, where they went to Saskatchewan on a Saturday, went to Toronto on a Tuesday, then came here on a Friday. So you're right, yeah.
But yeah, two electrifying quarterbacks here. You got Chad Kelly, who's been kind of being the air raid offense lately with the Argos if he's starting, and then it's Trey Ford, who's kind of been the talk of the town when it comes to that new age quarterback, right, in the CFL with using his legs, and he's going to have to be, I'm sure he's going to have to be running around all night in this one, especially Argos got a top defense too, and like you said, the Elks, it's kind of now or never when it comes to playoffs.
Saturday, 4 o'clock our time, Hamilton in Saskatchewan. The Riders, I read, inviting all kinds of legends back, celebrating the 10-year anniversary of their last Grey Cup win, which was at home against Hamilton. So, nice little tie-in here. But the Tiger Cats get it done against Calgary, and that was big because they stay within 2 points of Montreal. The only other real intriguing race other than first in the West will be second in the East, who's home for the division semifinal there. Montreal at 8-7. We'll talk about them in a minute. But this Tiger Cat team, I mean, Jekyll and Hyde, is that how you describe them? And Saskatchewan, they're just trying to win a football game. They still have a 4-point edge on Calgary for third in the Western Division. So these are two desperate teams here for different reasons.
Yeah, and it's Matthew Schultz at quarterback now for the Ticats. Yep. At least it was on Saturday against Calgary, right? So yeah, like you said, like Hamilton comes to BC with Taylor Powell and beats us. Then they host Winnipeg with Taylor Powell and beat them. And then suddenly they go to Matthew Schultz for a spark, and he provides that, and they beat the Stampeders. So they're doing it by any means necessary. That they've proven that they're going to exhaust all their resources in order to whatever it takes to get a win, right? And that was Matthew Schultz in that game, and it was Schultz hitting Tim White for a 70-yard touchdown in that one, which proved to be a massive play. And Tim White now quietest 1,000 yards. I can't remember. No one really talks about him as a superstar status, but he's right in there along with like the Kenny Lawlers, the Keon Hatchers, the Reggie Bagletons, right? So Tim White quietly been a top weapon for them again.
What's the latest with Bo Levi Mitchell? They were showing him on TV every 5 minutes there, of course, because they were playing Calgary. That would have been his first time against his old team. But is the goal still for him to come back?
Don't ask me.
I'm not just. It's a rhetorical question. Like I don't expect you to have all the insiders. We should get Farhan on here to maybe ask him.
Question, yeah.
But kind of in that similar vein, did you notice Trevor Harris walking around without a cast on at BC Place Friday and kind of going through the motions? And he's clearly trying to get back. Might be harder to do, but. What? Unfortunate circumstances for both those quarterbacks, though. Leg injuries and, Yeah.
In Riderville, though, I think Jake Dolegala played a pretty well game for them, and he's beaten
Went
us
over
before,
400
yeah.
yards against us again, right?
Again, half those came in the fourth quarter and almost in the final 2 drives when it was out of reach. But I thought he played overall pretty well, right? And he's beaten Winnipeg, so I think they're in good hands no matter what. And
No matter, yeah.
We just talked about Hamilton. Like, they got other quarterbacks, too, that are delivering them wins. But it is in a kind of a grander scale, too. Like, the recovery time now for these major injuries is crazy. Like, even last night in the NFL, you saw Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, he says he's coming back at the end.
And he looked quite mobile for a guy that blew his Achilles less than a month ago, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty crazy to see where sports science has gone and all the new ways that athletes are recovering in timely manners. You know, Nathan Rourke last season coming back, right, and kind of defying the odds.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing to see when it comes to sports science.
Speaking of that Jets Chiefs game, was Taylor Swift there? Any idea? Was she?
I was loving it.
Was she there? I'm just trying to get this confirmed. She was there, right?
I didn't watch the game personally, but I saw it on social media everywhere, and it's hey, like I was telling you, it makes sense. She's one of the biggest stars in the entire planet, right?
I get it, but
cameras are going to follow her no matter what.
All I'm saying is, if my Niners are in the Super Bowl against Kansas City, I might have to listen on NFL radio and not watch it, just because she'll be there if the Chiefs are there.
She'll probably be doing.
She doing the anthem? No, that's Usher doing the anthem.
I'm sure they could slide her in somehow. She's that big, like I was just saying.
By the way, 2 huge thumbs up for Green Day.
Oh yes, the halftime show. Yes, that was incredible.
I'm jacked up for this.
I was riding the SkyTrain when I refreshed.
Yeah, and my wife and I were taking an Uber into Kits to hang out with some friends and have a few drinks. But so we were both in transit, as they say, and yeah, sign me up, man. I love Green Day.
We had a back and forth where we were just naming Green Day songs that we love, and I think you look at the reaction on social media, it was overwhelmingly positive.
I'd say
deservedly so. That's a big get. Like they're still. I think you were saying that you saw them in Vegas. That was you, right?
I saw them in Oakland, which was cool because that's their hometown. So quick story. So I did a bit of a trip a few years ago. Went and saw a 49ers game at Levi's Stadium against the Jets. A good buddy of mine lives just outside of Santa Clara.
Okay.
So we got tickets to the San Jose Sharks game on the Saturday night. And then this friend of mine, he's a big music guy. And he says, if you're willing to leave the hockey game after the second period, we can jet to Oakland because there's some kind of festival going on at the Oracle Arena, the former home of the Golden State Warriors, where the Toronto Raptors won their championship, that same arena. This happened a few years after, but he's like, if you want to leave, I'd love to go see Green Day. We look on, tickets are like $17. Okay, done. I'll miss the third period of a San Jose Carolina game to go see Green Day. And it was awesome. Lots of love because it was in their hometown. They played all their hits. It was one of those 40-minute sets because it was part of a longer festival, but they played pretty much most of their best hits that they could fit in. So, yeah, needless to say, I'm jacked.
They got quite a bit of hits, too. I think any Green Day fans listening, there's one, it's a random song, like they're definitely not going to perform it on the magnitude like a Grey Cup stage, but there's a song called East Jesus Nowhere by Green Day, and it's one of my it's kind of a random song, but it's one of my favorite Green Day songs, and it's not one of their more popular ones, but
you figure you're going to get Basket Case, When I Come Around, maybe Boulevard of Broken Dreams.
100%. Wake Me Up with Some Timber Holiday, American Idiot.
There's going to be some left out here. Yeah, I'm just
Canadian Idiot. Yeah, do a little remix.
Yeah, there might be a few Canadian idiots inside Tim Hortons field on Grey Cup Sunday. We won't name names. But yeah, my point being, I'm jacked up. Good on the CFL and it makes me excited for what we're going to have here in 2024 because Mr. Doman and his Grey Cup committee are already planning.
The merch too, though. Do you see the logo design with the iconic? I don't know the album name for Green Day, but the CFL put it on a graphic.
Yeah, with the
fist. Yeah, that was iconic. So I kind of want to scoop one of those merch items up, or whether it's a T-shirt or whatever, when that time comes.
Very clever. All right, that's a long-winded setup to the final game of Week 18. We got a Thanksgiving Monday game. We get to come in here or work on Monday morning and then have a game on. It's a rematch, Ottawa and Montreal. How about that Sean Lemon, Nick? The big dagger, fumble return touchdown. The Alouettes maintain their 2-point edge on Hamilton for second spot. Love Thanksgiving Day football.
Yeah, unfortunately for the Redblacks, they kind of just came out flat, right? And Montreal took it to them pretty much from the start of the game to the finish, right? And Montreal goes to above 500 now. They're in the driver's seats for a home playoff game. They clinched a home playoff spot with that victory. But yeah, the Alouettes, like we said the other week, where I think all 7 of their losses are to us.
Toronto and Winnipeg.
Right?
That's right.
And they're beating
2-2 and 3.
the teams that they're supposed to be better than. They're just beating with ease, right? So, I mean, everyone's talking Toronto, and they got the East Final. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if Montreal gave them a good go in the East Final if it gets to that point.
Well, like I was saying, whoever emerges in second and wins the whoever wins the semifinal, not necessarily going to be the team that finishes second. That team will have been in playoff mode for a long time because they've been battling for positioning, and you see it all the time when a team, not all the time, but sometimes when a team clinches early, and that's the challenge for Ryan Dinwiddie. It's a good problem to have, but yeah, I would say it's not a slam dunk that it's Toronto representing the East, even though they're far and away the best team out there.
One note on the Alouettes too. You mentioned that Chad Kelly probably has the East MOP locked up. I don't like, is Marc-Antoine Duquois now in that conversation now too? He scored another touchdown last week with a pick 6.
Yeah,
remember he had one that was taken away here just by
opening
a pass
play of the game.
Pass
right?
interference call took one away. Yeah. You got a pick 6 against Zach Collaros earlier in the season. So he's been a fantastic player for them. I think he's probably the front runner for the defensive player there in the East. But I mean, if he gets another touchdown or two in these final couple of games, I think that conversation kind of has to be had, right? When it becomes multiple touchdown season for a defensive player.
I get what you're saying, but knowing how the voters go, yeah.
You got to think bigger picture.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
You can't be predetermined. Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
That's good. It's good to have multiple players at multiple positions doing great things. But yeah, just remember the feeling of that called back pick 6, because remember it was the game in Toronto before that with the 6. So you're thinking, this cannot be how this starts tonight. This cannot be.
But he's a hell of a player.
He's a great player.
He's gotten a couple guys this season.
He's definitely in the upper echelon of defensive guys. All right, Gravy Bowl again Friday, 7 o'clock kickoff, bclions.com. Tickets start at $25 for adults, $10 for youth 17 and under. Let's pack the lower bowl. Let's get a lot more fans in there, Lions and Bombers, and be sure to tune into all of our channels, web, social, everything. Subscribe, rate, leave a review for this podcast, and we'll see you all this week. We'll see you great fans at the stadium on Friday.
Can't wait. Game of the year.
Be careful out there.